I'll tell you what we're going to do tonight and what we do in general in these evenings, and we'll go from there. My name is Jeffrey Van Dyke, and the primary work I do in the world is helping mission-driven entrepreneurs get crystal clear about what the 1 square inch is in the market they're meant to drill a mile deep. How to connect deeply, viscerally, honestly, effectively with the people you're on earth to serve. And ultimately, how to move from being a practitioner to a thought leader. And to make that transition into that larger impact. Because all of my people, we all have the vision, right? This is the thing I'm meant to be doing in the world. And so how do you shore up the relationship between the vision and the reality you're living day in and day out? These evenings are where we ride the edge of the wave. I have business programs in marketing and other aspects of leadership. These evenings, though, are more the playground, where we take topics that come up when you're being a mission-driven entrepreneur that aren't necessarily strictly part of business or strictly part of your spiritual path or strictly part of anything, but are definitely part of this journey. Tonight is going to be a little different, I think, who knows, than my more standard monthly events, in that we're gonna take on a more traditional, seemingly, topic of storytelling. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute and kind of induct us into what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. I also want to speak to the space we're in and say hello to the live streamers. We are at the Hall Center in Santa Monica, California. This is run by Dr. Prudence Hall, one of my dear, 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 dear friends. Just wrote a new book called Radiant, so you can check that out. And her work is to help people become fully alive using regenerative medicine. Hormones, thyroid, all sorts of things to really help you be vital. And I know I could not be doing the work I do today without her support. So it's great to be here, and she really sees these gatherings as a part of the larger picture of our collective mission of really bringing people like fully alive into the work they're meant to be doing in the world. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say by way of introduction, except hello live streamers, good to see you. Yeah, so let's take a moment and drop in here because we know that this work we're doing bridges and straddles and integrates the seemingly unseen into material reality, into this very tangible work we're here to do in this world. So I know that there is energy, vitality, aliveness that supports us all, and that supporting the evolution of our species, the evolution of our planet, the evolution of our collective consciousness, and that supports each and every one of you that's sitting here in person, that's live streaming, that's watching the recording at some point in the future. There is a vitality, a life force guiding and supporting you every single moment. And I just ask that we be available to that life force, that we be inspired, that our consciousness be available to something beyond our traditional thought, that we step out of this room with a consciousness that's expanded and more available to say yes, again and again and again and again. And in that vein, we say yes and step into this evening. Beautiful. Thank you. So over the last couple years, I've been getting a lot more into storytelling and studying storytelling and working with mentors around storytelling and telling more of my own stories. That's on one side. And on the other side, I have a deep dive training program, Tribal Marketing. It's a 3-month deep dive that I do with people. And I've been seeing a pattern over and over and over again in my clients in that program. that what we're really doing, because part of it is finding who the tribe is, part of it's building a signature system to serve that tribe really deeply. And what I've been seeing is that over and over again, the signature systems, quote unquote, are really about heroes' journeys. That really what we're doing with client after client after client is helping them understand what the unique hero's journey is that they are meant to be a support of, and building a program that they can enroll people into to guide them through that journey. What's interesting is that we all do this, but most of us do it fairly unconsciously, right? We don't necessarily have a whole lot of idea about who our clients always are, what the central theme is that shows up for that group of people, and how to consistently guide people through a unique journey that you uniquely have expertise in. And the truth is we can decode that, and decode it on some level fairly easily. Now, when I started getting into business and speaking, of course, everybody says you've got to learn how to tell your story, right? In marketing, we often say people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Thank you, Simon Sinek, right? Another thing we say is never sell the plane, sell the destination, right? You got to know where you're bringing people to. Another thing we say is that people buy with emotion and justify their purchases with logic. So we know that we have to capture people emotionally. We have to connect with them viscerally. We also have to tell them very tangibly, here's what you're going to get by working with me. And when we have those two things together, the head and the heart, that's when people start making sense out of your offers. Oh, my mind knows why I'm going to buy this from you, and my heart feels compelled to do it. Right? So there's resonance in purchase decisions. What I find often with people is that there's not necessarily resonance with purchase decisions because either we're really transformationally oriented people and we're like, I'm going to help you move into deep self-love. But there's nothing for the mind to chew on, right? There's no like bullet points of like, but wait, what am I going to get for that $5,000? Right? That sounds nice, but I'll buy a book. Thanks. You know, so there's like, and I know people where it's like, they meet people that are like, oh my God, I love you. You're so cool. That's so great that you do what you do. Gosh, I wish I could do what I really wanted to do. Good for you. Moving on, right? It's like they're resonating with you, but they're not compelled to buy from you. Or you have the opposite. Something makes a lot of logical, tangible sense, right? If you've ever been to a website where somebody's selling a program or a product or something, and you read through it and you're like, gosh, that would be really valuable for me. Like, I can really see that I could get something out of that. But you just can't seem to like push the purchase button. Like, it's an eh. That's what it is, right? You're like, eh. And so you move away. Your mind, the logic, check, 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 check. But the heart, nothing there. No relationship. Now, there's a third aspect that I'm going to speak to a bit tonight that I think is the most mysterious aspect of them all, which is your spirit or essence embodied. So I think of head, heart, and body. And the body, I think, as the broadcaster of your essence. Now, I believe, okay, wow, I didn't know I was going to teach this tonight. Oh, all right, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to start teaching some stuff. By the way, this is how these nights go. I never know what I'm going to say exactly. It's just I show up, and we do this dance. I believe that ultimately our job is to broadcast our essence in everything we do. And the products we deliver, and the stories we tell, and the work we do, we are here to broadcast essence. Essence is this most mysterious, most intangible aspect of how and why people relate to you in the unique way that they do. I think about essence like a scent. I'll speak to that for a minute, but first let me just say, when I'm on stage, you have a certain feeling in my presence that would be different than if any one of you stood up here instead, right? All right, come up here. Just stand up here and just say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Right? Like, look at this essence, right? Like bright, beaming love. It's gorgeous, but it's different than mine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, stay there. Just like, see, like, and maybe we're in a soul family, maybe it's similar, but it is different. It is distinct, yeah? You might not be able to even put words to it, but you can feel it, you can taste it, you can sense it.
And it's not just wardrobe.
And it's not just wardrobe. That's right. Thank you. So each one of us broadcasts everywhere we go. We're always broadcasting. Now, some people walk into a room and you're like, whew, right? They're like amplified. They're like, 100 watts or 1,000 watts. It's like, walk into a room and you can just feel their presence the moment they walk in. I remember seeing Jessye Norman, this great opera singer, in her prime, which would have been in the early 90s, singing a solo recital. And this is a woman with countenance and regalness. And the moment her toe stepped on stage, she had the entire audience in her palms. It was astounding. The moment she hit the last note of her song, she sang all German and French lieder throughout the night. Then she did a German lieder, a French art song, with a pianist and a page turner, right? But her last song, third encore, this is a sold out house. She comes on stage with this grin, like, I've got something for you. And there's no pianist or page turner following her, just her. And she takes stage and she kind of looks to one side and looks to the other and holds the room, knowing she's got something. And she just starts, he's got the whole world in his hands, he's got. And she just went into her like signature spiritual closing song, he's got the whole world in his hands. And after the just drawing and milking every note in the first verse, the pianist kind of comes on stage, starts vamping behind her. And at the very end, she's like, he's got you and me right in his hands. I gotta not sing so loud into this mic. I could sing into that one. This is not made for it. And she hits the last note, in his hands. And the moment she hit that note, the entire audience, as if we were one mind, we all stood up, encore. And I remember this moment of smiling so big because I had so much joy and having the thought, I've never smiled for this long without laughing. It's a weird thought, but that's the thought I had. Wow, like this is what joy feels like. Not just laughter, not just fun, but joy, right? And it's her essence that was doing that magic. Yes, her words, her notes, the song, but there was something she let loose when she got to that song that made us one. I also remember I sang in this choir that toured internationally, and we sang in the best houses all around the world. And one tour, we had 75 people. We had 25 people in a chamber orchestra. Normally we sang a cappella, but we had a chamber orchestra. And we had this Bach cantata, which was about a 15-minute cantata at the beginning of this 2-hour concert. And we got to our final concert, our home concert. And I'll never forget the conductor, world-class conductor, starts us, and after about 30 seconds, maybe a minute, just stood there for 15 minutes until the last few bars. And that was 75 singers and 25 orchestra members as one mind. And I think that's also where our essence comes together and was so connected to what we were broadcasting that afterwards the conductor said, I would have gotten in your way. So that to me is the third element of how we connect and draw people in. And like I was saying a minute ago, I think about it like scent. So all the senses except for scent are processed by the neocortex. So we have three brains. We have the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and the neocortex. The reptilian brain is fight or flight. It's the oldest brain. It's the fastest brain. It's completely precognitive. Oh crap, there's a tiger, run, right? That's the brain that kicks in when a mother can lift a car off from a child. Then we have the mammalian brain, the middle brain. In fact, I brought paper tonight. I just thought somehow I might be teaching a bit more, so here we are. We'll bring this over. We'll do a little brain science, then I'll teach you this other thing, and then we'll get to stories, we will. There, this beautiful alien. So this is our reptilian brain, mammalian brain, neocortex. So this is the fastest brain. This is medium fast. It's the second brain we developed as humans. It's sometimes referred to as the emotional brain. Also precognitive. And then we have our neocortex. This is the only place where we have cognition, where we do rational processing. So when we're working with people, when we're talking to them, when we're marketing to them, when we're connecting to them, are we just connecting here, or are we connecting more to their full brain, right? What's interesting about the senses is that all of them, except for smell, are processed by the neocortex. Touch, taste, sight, right, hearing. These are all processed by the neocortex. We know what's happening, when it's happening. It's in real time, the way we think about it. But scent is processed by the mammalian brain, by the emotional brain. It impacts us before we're even consciously aware that it is, right? This is why real estate agents bake cookies or bread and when they hold open houses. So the moment you walk in, before your logical brain even says anything, something deeper is saying, home, right? Oh, this feels good. This brings back memories, right? This feels good. That's what happens here. We can't touch it. We can't taste it. We can't see it. It's this invisible sense that still impacts us really deeply, right? I think of essence very much the same way. We can speak to people's head, we can speak to their heart, but when our essence is broadcasting, I think of it much like scent, that it hits us at a deeper precognitive level and impacts us before we even know how it's impacting us or what that impact is, right? Now, I told you I was going to teach something I didn't think I'd be teaching tonight, but here we go. So a while ago, good few years ago, I got this download about what it really takes to have global contribution. And it really boils down to 4 primary elements. And I see them stacked upon one another and coming up and out into the world. And when I got this, I could look at every entrepreneur I've worked with over the last decade plus, and I've worked with literally thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. And I can run it through this filter and go, yeah, every single one that's running into problems, having their contribution come out to the world, has at least one of these arenas offline or a little wonky. And the people that are rocking it, that are living their dream, that are expressing, seem to have all 4 of these stacked up and working beautifully together. So I think about it a little like a upside down triangle or V or something like this. So down here, this is essence. It's at the foundation. This is the thing we're bringing out to the world. And you know those people you meet where you're like, I know, I see your mouth moving, but I can't connect with you at all. Like, you aren't home. Like, somehow they, as a human, are offline. You've met those people? And, like, you can't trust them. And you're like, I'm supposed to have small talk with you. Especially, like, I remember when I used to work at Microsoft, right? And it's like I'm in corporate, and I'm in corporate. And you know, and I remember this bit. Or the other one is where you just see them broadcasting such a mask. Here I am. Right, and you're like, oh, really? Just stop. So that's essence. And to me, that has to be online. And then we have the next one. I call this design. These are, this is about having an understanding of your natural skills and abilities. For example, I'm a talker. I'm super auditory. And it's really just been in the last year that I've embraced that. I often will, if I really have to read something long, I'm like, oh, I don't want to read that. And those are the things I might like procrastinate on dealing with, etc. Pat, my business manager, said to me maybe a year ago, she's like, so if you had your dream day, what kind of activities would you be doing? And I was like, really? Do you really want to know? She's like, mm-hmm. I said, I would only talk. I would just talk. I would teach. I would coach. If we needed to create curriculum, I would tell you the questions you would need to ask me to interview me about that topic. We would have you interview me on recording. We would send that recording to our transcriptionist. That transcript would go to our editor. That would end up back with you, Pat. You'd look it over again, and then we'd sit down side by side, and I'd verbally tell you what needs to be edited from there. That's how we would create content. And that's pretty much how we create content now. There is this app called Voxer. Do you guys know Voxer? Right? And you just can, here's one from Jazz.
Well, I'm kind of a big deal.
So, so that's my assistant. She's saying she's a big deal. She's awesome. Hi, Jazz. Right? And so she'll email me something, but instead of emailing back, I'll often be like, hey, Jazz. Jazz is her nickname. It's Jennifer. And I'll just give her my edits or my feedback, whatever, over this. There's something called Loom, where I can make little recordings of my computer, and it gives me a link immediately to send it. So when I review copy, website copy and stuff for my clients, I verbally edit. I turn on Loom, and I go through the copy, and I verbally tell them what the edits are while I'm recording it. And then I'm like, here's my feedback. Boom, send it over. Right? I just talk because that's my design. Bless you. Bless you again. But Pat, for example, is a reader. She's visual. She needs to see things, right? I'm also somebody that is good on stage, whereas somebody else might be better in the back of the room. We all need to know what our design is. The brain stuff is another thing. There's actually 4 quadrants of the neocortex, and each one has a dominant activity, and each one of us is born with a dominant lead in one of those arenas, and another arena where we really have no business hanging out in. So whether it's hand analysis or astrology or any esoteric art, or whether it's more traditional stuff like Myers-Briggs or StrengthsFinder or the Kolbe assessment, however you find out what your design is and are able to live from your design, the easier your life is going to be, the less energy it's going to take you to live your life, and the more energy you'll have to express your mission. Make sense? Great. So, essence design. This is so wild that I'm teaching this tonight. Third one, your calling. What is this thing you're meant to be doing with your life? What's the calling on your heart, right? So I say, essence, expressed through your design, animates your calling, right? It's you use your essence through your design to do your calling. That's how this works. So calling is what are you meant to be doing with your life? What's the impact you're meant to have in the world? Who are you meant to be serving? Why those people? What's the hero's journey you're meant to take those people on? That's calling. And finally, the fourth one is model or business model. In other words, what structures are you meant to use are best suited to your calling, right? So apparently, for my calling, being a guide, being a teacher, being a speaker, being a mentor, being a coach, those are all valuable mechanisms I can use to express my calling in my business model, right? So that's why I have this business model versus, I used to work in Silicon Valley and worked in technology. It was not the best model for my calling. So essence, through your unique design, animating your calling, expressed through this model that's most suited to your calling, equals your global contribution, right? Global contribution. So, it'd be fun to tie this back into storytelling in a minute. So this is the model I use to look at, do the people I work with have the things they need to be successful? So I want you to imagine, you've seen people that have a great business model, they're clear about their calling, they might even know their design, but they have some crap they have not handled, right? And so there's like a blanket over their spirit and you can feel it. You're not very interested in them, you don't trust them necessarily, this doesn't really work. Or people that have done a lot of personal growth, right? And maybe really know their calling, but they don't really know what they're good at, right? They don't know what they're designed, so they're doing everything in their business, right? I don't do a lot of things in my business. I'm really not good at a lot of things in my business. And thank God I have other people that are as interested in this work as I am and that support it, right? But I see people doing everything under the sun and they wear themselves out because they don't know their design. Or people that say have their essence online, they know their design, they have a sense of their calling, but their business is all over the place. They don't have a model that's scalable, they don't have a model that moves into a bigger contribution, so while they have a big grand calling, their business model is not remotely something that can ever move to a grand scale. Make sense? And so we can look pretty quickly at somebody's life and business and go, oh, which one of these is offline that tells me why global contribution ain't happening yet? And we can also see people that are doing the global contribution thing and well, let me step back and say there's two versions, I think, of doing the global contribution thing. There's one where you are using your own personal will to shove your stuff into the world. That's the version we see a lot of. And some people just seem to have a lot of will, man. And they can do it for a while, right? Now, behind the scenes, I can tell you, some of those people can barely get out of bed. They have a massive business built out around them, and they're killing themselves, right? So there is that, where these aren't necessarily all stacked up, but they have enough will that they don't require efficiency. This is the most elegant, efficient way to express your calling that I know of. Because when these are all lined up, and of course they're all supported by the people that aren't your design and so on and so forth, it's very efficient. You're just doing what you're genius at, expressing the thing you love most, using your energy really efficiently. So that's the global contribution thing that happens much more effortlessly and beautifully. Yeah? Good. So there's global contribution model. We'll see where we go with that. And the reason I got there, started there, went there for a minute, was around storytelling and speaking to head, heart, and intellect. Head, heart, and essence or body. Because essence, when it's really embodied, is like, whew, you can feel someone's presence, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the hero's journey that each one of you are here to bring your tribe on. And relate that to storytelling. Because here's the thing that most people feel about storytelling. Either, I don't really have a story to tell. Anybody feel that way? I'm not sure I have a story to tell. Maybe I do. Okay, cool. Or it's, I don't know what stories to tell. I know I have some stories, but which one should I be telling and why to connect most effectively with my tribe? Anybody in that bucket? Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, maybe. So what I've found is that to understand which stories to tell that are going to connect most deeply and personally with your tribe, we have to look at what your hero's journey has been. Right? And what the central theme of your life's journey has been. For those of you that have followed me for a little while, you know that what my work looks at, or part of my work looks at, is how our core wounds are the training program for our life's greatest contribution. And the way I think about it is this way. So some of you have seen me do this metaphor, but I think about our wounds and our training program for a purpose like a slingshot. Right? However, pull a rock back in a slingshot dictates precisely how it's going to fly forward. Right? If you pull it back and to the left, it goes to the right. Back and down, it goes up and down. Right? So our wounds are like this rock in a slingshot, and it gets pulled back in the first part of life, and then we react to the wounds and go out into life. And in response to our wounding, we really just do two primary things. We try to hide it from ourselves and others, right? If you have a wound around being an embarrassment, please don't look and see that I'm an embarrassment. Let me prove you how much I'm not an embarrassment. So we try to hide it from ourselves and others, and we try to prove it to be untrue. If I had somebody in a speaking gig I did not long ago who had a wound around being stupid. Guess how many degrees she had? She was working on, she's like, yeah, I have blah, blah, blah degrees. I forget if it's 7 or something. And she goes, well, not including the current PhD. And I was like, how many PhDs do you have? She goes, well, 2 so far, right? An extreme version of I'm going to prove that I'm not stupid, right? People that I see that are hyper successes, like driven for success, invariably their wound is around being a failure. It's the only thing that would drive someone to the point where they must be a success. And what's funny is when I work with those clients, they're like, couldn't possibly be that. Couldn't possibly be that I'm a failure. I'm like, oh yeah? Yeah, look at everything I've done. That's not a failure, right? They've like eaten their own stuff. They've like, yeah. And I'm like, what drove you to do all of that? Why did you have to do that? Why was that not remotely an option? And that's when the wheels start turning a little bit and I start deconstructing their world, right? It's like, holy crap, right? And then if I go deeper with them and actually look at their life history and their life story, we can see, yeah, I probably grew up with an overbearing father that you could never get approval from, right? There's some telltale signs. And sure enough, almost always they're there. For my tribe, there's 2 primary themes, belonging and power. So I wrote in one of my emails coming up to this evening about how I used to never talk about being gay from stage. I've been out since I was 21. So a good couple decades. But I never seemed relevant, right? Like I don't primarily speak to gays and lesbians in my work. It's a part of my identity, but it's not like my primary identity. So it never seemed relevant. Didn't seem like it really was necessary. And then I started to notice something. The more I got connected to supporting people and being really ruthlessly honest about what their work in the world actually was, the more I started to see that everybody in my tribe was in the closet somehow. Right? Not necessarily about being gay and lesbian. Usually, on some level, about being weird or woo-woo or different or channeling stuff or getting stuff or somehow the spiritual aspect to how they function in this world. Something unseen that's about how they function that they felt weird about exposing, that they felt like they would have to justify. And I get it, because Bob, who's often here, calls this business church, right? He's like, I realize that like business and being an entrepreneur is part of my spiritual path, and Jeffrey, this is business church. That's why I keep coming. And when I really looked at them, I'm like, yeah, on some level, like I'm a business minister. That's weird, right? That's funky.
That's why I come.
That's why you come too, right? Yeah. Now, if I was in the closet about being a business minister, I couldn't start this with an invocation or prayer, right? I couldn't bring spirituality and business together. And for a long time, I fought that. I kept saying to my guidance, like, so wait, am I like a spiritual teacher or a business guy, right? Like, which one am I? And like, at one point, I just remember getting this, like, you ever had that like spiritual smackdown, like, psh, 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 psh. Like, don't you get it? You're here to integrate the two. They're not meant to be separate in your world. That's the whole point, right? Okay. I'm really meant to be this person that stands on stage, talks about business, helps people with real, tangible business issues, and channels stuff as I do it, right? And that's the yes. Oftentimes when I get off stage, I walk out and people are like, so you get stuff up there, don't you? Right? And I'm like, mm-hmm. They're like, but like you get it right as I'm watching you. I'm like, mm-hmm. They're like, how do you do that? Right? That's like if there's one question I get when I step off stage, that is the question. Right? And to me, it's just like, well, that's how I function. That's how I work. It's like breathing. But I recognize that part of the coming out stuff is standing on stage as a demonstration. And that there's, like, I've had this weird head twitch. My friends call it my spiritual Tourette's for years. Like, I get stuff, my head goes, like, all voodoo weird. And I was like, what? Why do I have that? And then at some point, it was like, oh, it's part of being visible. That's part of the coming out thing and being a guide around coming out. Now, when you're gay, you come out for the rest of your life. It's not a one-time thing, right? Like, I've told this story. The last time I remember doing it was when I moved to LA, which is now 4 years ago. But this is the most memorable one. And this dental hygienist was cleaning my teeth and whatnot, taking x-rays actually. And she's like, oh, you're so handsome. Do you have a wife? And I'm like, and I made a decision way early on to always come out. to be visible. And I was like, nope, I'm gay and single. I could have just said, no, I don't have a wife, right? But like, that's the piece. It's like it's part of the daily life coming out. So it's what I call having a life PhD in coming out. It's one of the life PhDs I have. Now, I also think that's an amplified PhD because I grew up in a super conservative community. We went to church twice on Sundays and every Wednesday, had altar calls every week, right, in our evangelical upbringing. So that's the backdrop of coming out. And I held that secret for 9 years before I told a soul. So I know what it's like to have something that feels true about you and not know how to express it, and not know whether you can express it or not, and not know what the implications of expressing it might be. I also know the hurt and the sorrow and the hiding and the aloneness that comes along with not claiming it. That comes along with not being honest with the world about who you are, about some essential aspect of who you are. And to me, it's these themes that we connect. It's these places where we're most honest about the thing that's most difficult to be honest about, that we connect most deeply with our tribe. It's a place where your essence is most palpable, most in the air, having the most impact, where the words you say are just a little fraction of what's actually going on, and where trust and rapport gets built more than any place else. Can you feel that? Yeah. So that's one of my stories. Right? In my keynote, one of my keynotes, this whole bit where I am like lying on the beach. I'm 12 years old. I'm with my big sister Kim, and she has copper tone on because it's the 80s. And she, we grew up in Holland, Michigan, full of Dutch immigrants. We have license plate holders that said, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. And laying there on the beach at Lake Michigan and seeing these 3 young, beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed girls come up in bikinis, my sister's friends, to say hello. And as gorgeous as they are, I can't take my eyes off from their boyfriend's washboard abs. And the moment where I go, I'm looking at the wrong thing. And have this surreal moment of knowing that, like, and that has all sorts of implications for my life. On its own, that story doesn't make any sense in business. It doesn't have a place in a keynote. Not related to marketing, which is the primary thing I do in business. But I move into a place where I tell my audience that they very well may have a secret, that there's something more for them to be doing in the world, and that you cannot be a leader and hide.
I'm just seeing an image of Skilling at Enron hiding everything in shell companies.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because of all of the maneuvers of trying to not be the brightest in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, as it relates to business, I say, if you're hiding, how's anybody going to find you? Right? I speak to entrepreneurs in the world of marketing. So what doesn't seem on surface like a story you would tell from stage in business, or a story you'd necessarily tell as it relates to marketing, it's absolutely essential for my audience. And because I know that the central theme is coming out, I know how to translate the details of being a 12-year-old boy on the beach in Lake Michigan and seeing these abs directly back to their business and their bottom line, right? I'll tell you one other story, not from myself, but from a guy I had a consult with a while back. It's a guy who does financial planning and works with seniors to keep their money for a lifetime. And as I'm interviewing, I ask him about his life's biggest challenges, which is one of the things I always do in my consults. And he goes on to tell me that he grew up as a Jehovah's Witness and left at some point. And I said, oh, how'd you feel when you left? He's like, I felt duped. I felt so stupid that I'd stayed for so long. You know, I wondered why I didn't see it sooner, what I, became aware of. And I said, tell me this. The clients you work with, these seniors, have they ever been duped financially by other advisors or other financial schemes? He goes, well, yeah, I'm sure they have. I said, do they feel kind of stupid around money? He goes, yeah, well, everybody does. I said, okay, but do yours in particular feel like it's a foreign language a bit? He goes, yeah, I do a lot of education. I said, uh-huh. And when they've been duped before, do they sometimes wonder to themselves, why didn't I see this sooner? He goes, yeah, I'm sure they do. Now, of course, I had looked at his website before our consultation. None of this is anywhere, right? It looks like a financial advisor's website. I said, do you ever give talks to get new clients? He goes, mm-hmm. I said, have you ever told the story about being a witness and leaving from stage? He's like, no, I'd never do that. I said, oh, well, to the detriment of your clients and to the detriment of the bottom line of your business, you'll never do it, right? That's the greatest asset you have, is that story. It's one thing to say, I help seniors keep their money for a lifetime, and look, I know you might not feel like the smartest person around finances, and maybe you've been taken advantage of before, but I won't. You can trust me. Right? That's essentially what his website says, right? And essentially what he's saying, right? And I'm like, which guy are you going to believe? The guy that says that, or the guy that comes on stage and says, so glad you're here, blah, blah, blah. Tonight I'm going to teach you about these 3 things about finance and keeping your money for a lifetime. But first I want to share a little something about my own life. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. I was a witness for many years. And sometime in my adult life, whenever that was, I left. I started to see through this religion, and it didn't make sense to me anymore. And when I finally left, I wondered how I couldn't have seen it sooner, why it took me so long. I felt duped. I felt stupid. I felt taken advantage of. And I resolved to never be taken advantage of again. Maybe you can feel the same way about your money. Maybe you've been taken advantage of, and maybe you're looking for someone that can actually stand behind helping you keep your money for a lifetime. That is why I'm on stage tonight. Which guy are you going to invest with? Yeah, guy 2, of course, right? Now, he was missing one central ingredient, and that's the ingredient that I find that most of my clients are missing, and that's what we're going to go into next. And the ingredient is, what's the primary theme? The connective tissue. For me, in one of my story themes, it's coming out. For him, it's being duped and being taken advantage of, right? These relate, both of these themes relate to central core wounds. My wound is a wound around belonging. I was a different kid. I didn't fit in. I said weird stuff. I was gay in a religious household. Many of you can relate because you're in this room. Many of you can relate because you're streaming, right? Because you know what it's like to be an outcast, to not belong, to not fit in, to see the world in a different way, to wonder if people are going to accept how you see the world, to not know if they're going to reject you when you bring your truth out. Yes? Yeah, right? So that's the belonging wound. I know that that's one of the central wounds from which I serve my tribe. Now, I also know that the hero's journey of belonging and being an outcast is into sovereignty. If there's one thing I'm trying to do with my work underneath the marketing and the business development and everything else, it's helping my clients step into their sovereignty. Another central theme of the outcast is the outcast is designed to be the way shower. In the wound, we go, will you accept me? Will you love me? Will you reject me? I don't know. Can I really share this stuff? Right? That's kind of what happens, and we do this. We're like, here, oh no. Here, oh no, right? Like it's that song and dance. And I get it. I spent many years doing that one. But at some point I started to see, oh, the holy role of the outcast is to be a way shower. That the outcast sees things from outside where everybody else is. We're up on mezzanine looking down at the orchestra. Seeing, oh, look at that. Oh, And if you put these together in this way, you'd have this whole new thing, right? One of the ways I did that is to say, oh, you really want to know who your tribe is? Let's look at your core wounds. Who would put core wounds and marketing together, right? Only somebody who's been on the outside and can see a new way. That's the role of the outcast, is to be a way shower. So knowing that that's the hero's journey, and that one of the central ingredients of being able to move from the wounded expression of being an outcast to the purposeful expression of being a way shower is the journey of coming out. You can't be a way shower and be in the closet about the work you're really on earth to do. Does not work, right? And a lot of my tribe are still trying to do that. Most people not so consciously, but yeah, right? I'm trying to be a way shower and kind of stay in the closet at the same time. There's something I still don't really want to show the world or look at myself, but man, I want to serve, right? Those two things do not go together. One must come out and say, oh, this is this different thing I meant to bring to the world. I've been out here with the sickle. I've paved a new path. Come this way. I'll show the way. Right? And whatever that path is, uniquely for each one of you, is actually where your products, programs, and services are meant to lie. Wherever you're meant to be, whatever you're meant to be a way shower of. So, it's one thing to say, oh, I'm a way shower of this. That's kind of like, I'll help you keep your money for a lifetime. Trust me. It's another thing to use your story to demonstrate it. To reveal yourself in the process. Which creates an opening for your tribe to meet you. Right? So, we're going to do some hot seats tonight. We're going to do a little exercise, and my hope is that you'll leave tonight being clearer, hopefully than ever before, about what the pattern of your wounding is and what a primary theme is, or central theme is, around your wounding, so that you can do the third thing, which is find stories that demonstrate that central theme. The reason I am positive you all have the absolute best stories possible for your work is because you've lived that journey. So the perfect stories that demonstrate those themes are already in your history. Yeah? Cool. Good. So I'm going to have you do a little reflection here for a minute, and then I'm going to bring some of you on stage, and we'll kind of demonstrate it, and we'll do a little more. Yeah, we're good. We're good. So the first thing I want you to do is to ask yourself, like, what's the thing I've struggled with most? What are some of the things I've struggled with most? And if you have pen and paper, you can write some of it down. On the live streamers, hi live streamers. Did we take a tumble? We're back. So the first thing to ask yourself is, like, is my thing that I've always felt different? Is my thing that, you know, did you grow up with an older sister or brother that you could never match up to, and so you always felt second rate or less than? Did you grow up in a community that you didn't fit in with? Maybe you were an immigrant and everybody else wasn't. Maybe you were of one skin color and everybody else was a different skin color. And so you felt like you weren't accepted or something like that. What was the thing you've gone through over and over again in your lifetime? And if you aren't so sure about that, just ask yourself, like, what have I struggled with the most? You know, if you struggled getting friends, for example. I'm thinking about somebody I know right now that's struggled with finding a good group of friends. I'd say, oh, well, why do you think you've struggled with finding a good group of friends, right? And this person would say, I don't think anybody understands me. I'm you know, duck, duck, goose, or in Minnesota they do duck, duck, gray duck. Yes, you Minnesotans are weird. I've lived there. You know, so like I was the gray duck, and I still feel like the gray duck, and I just don't feel people understand me. And so I feel socially awkward, and I don't know who to connect with, right? Oh, so there's a central theme, loss of connection, right? I don't know who to connect with, and it's happened over and over again throughout my life. So I need to think about two things, and we're going to do some hot seats to demonstrate this, and I'll do a little more teaching while we do hot seats. But there's two things we're going to look at. One is, what's the primary pattern of your wounding? And the second is, what's the central theme related to that wound pattern? So, sound like good fun? Yeah, all right. And then the third thing we're going to do is find a couple stories you can tell that are related to that central theme that would allow you to connect more deeply with your tribe. Cool? So, who's game? All right, Kyle, you're coming up. You're going to sit here. Yeah. It's kind of like when like when you sleep with somebody, you always have your side of the bed, like, this is my chair. I don't know why.
Don't mess with that chair.
I don't know why. This is my chair. All right, good. So let's start here. I'm curious if you have a sense of what one of the big patterns of wounding has been for you.
I could share and I feel, and maybe you could articulate it.
Yeah.
So one thing for me is I had an experience when I was like 6 or 7 or 8 with one of my close friends, and had a sexual experience, and it was a guy. And that was something I kept in the closet until I was maybe 13. I remember I was in the car with my dad, and I ended up just breaking down crying. I just couldn't hold it in anymore. Yeah. So that's one.
Okay.
And another thing that came to me was my dad's always been there for me, but I never really felt like he was very present. So what I've noticed is I've attracted some extremely powerful men into my life.
Yep.
And I think it might just be because I crave their presence.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Let me do one thing before I move ahead. I'm just going to move this slightly so we can hear you a little better. So first thing I get is there's definitely something with men and like masculinity, men's presence, like for sure. So let's look at these two things you mentioned and we'll decode a pattern.
Sure.
So, you know, you're 6 years old, you fool around with a boy,
Yeah.
you have this big secret,
Yeah.
right? How do you feel about yourself with that secret? What are some of the stories you would tell yourself?
There's shame and guilt and like a feeling of like, am I gonna get like scared of going to hell?
Uh-huh.
That was one thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And if I went to hell, I'd go to hell because I'm what?
Gay.
Uh-huh. And gay people are in your child's brain.
Right. I would say bad.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Bad. I'm bad. Bad. Mm-hmm. And you then break down and tell your dad. Right? And how do you feel then?
Well, feeling back into it is a feeling of like, I just gotta like just really wanting to say it and get it out because it hurt a lot to just keep that in.
Yeah. All right. So let's go. We're gonna pause on that one for a minute and just talk about generally with your father. Like you really relied on him. You didn't feel so much like he was present.
Like we would go out and do things, but and maybe in retrospect he was, but like what I feel right now is he wasn't like here and
Yeah.
just like present.
Yep.
And it's different to even spend an hour versus spending 10 minutes and he's just like there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that experience, what were you craving?
Love. To be seen.
And if you were seen, how would you have felt, do you imagine?
Loved.
So I want to be seen and loved. I want to be... And if you were seen and loved, then how would you feel?
Significant.
Good. So, being seen is a mechanism to have significance.
Yeah.
Now, can you see a pattern in your life of trying to be seen and looking for significance?
Yeah, most definitely.
I say in jest.
Rhetorical question.
Right, rhetorical question, right. So those are some central themes for you,
Yeah.
right? I want to be seen, and when I'm seen, I feel significant, so I crave your attention. Look at me. I want to be here. Oh. You also stepped into this industry, right?
Right.
So you started coaching, and I know you worked with a well-known dude, not going to say his name, for some time, and then you're like, no, but I don't want to work for him. I want to be the guy on stage,
Right.
right? I don't want to be back there. I want to be up here. That's close to being seen. Maybe I could be seen by the person I work with who's up here, and they'll give me a sense of significance. But over time, that's not enough, right? I want it from everybody, not just from the well-known dude, right? And you worked for a guy, right?
I did work for a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I want to be a significant man.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you one more.
Yeah, sure.
Can you see that that pattern has shown up in your dating life?
Me wanting to be a significant man? Totally.
Yeah. And are you dating women?
I am. I'm seeing one woman.
All right. And historically, how have women responded to that?
So, to varying degrees,
Yeah.
I would say I was at a stage where I was more overcompensating
Yeah.
and like just being bigger.
Yeah.
But I've really stepped into just showing my heart and just being transparent and
Yeah.
connecting. That I value that a lot more than like, look at how big I am.
Which actually isn't significance. It's presence, which is the thing you're looking for underneath significance.
Okay.
So there's being seen so that you get significance. When you have significance, there's actual presence, which is the thing you crave from your dad. See that? You're like, I think I do. I know it's hard when you're up here. Do you guys see it? Yeah, cool. So in your clients, have you seen that a lot of them are pushing and striving for significance? perhaps overcompensating for it.
One person comes to my mind, and he's like overthinking and stuff like that. And he definitely feels like he wants to be seen and out there in the world more.
So in response to our wounds, we do one of two things. We either inflate or deflate. And we do a mixture of them. Some people tend to be more of an inflated response. Some people tend to be more of a deflated response. So do you also see people that have the deflated response, which is, I don't feel like I'm seen and I feel insignificant?
Yeah.
And are those people drawn to you?
Definitely had people drawn to me that felt insignificant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're going to have more of that.
Awesome.
Now, here's the interesting thing. The hero's journey, from what I'm hearing, just from this interaction
Sure.
for you, is you go out. So what does the hero do, right? Goes out on a quest for something and ends up right where they started, realizing on some level they had it all along, right? That's kind of the basic hero's journey. But along the way, you get all the understanding and the ahas and everything you need to actually claim it. Because before you went on your quest, you couldn't claim it. You had it, couldn't claim it, right? So the hero's journey I'm hearing starts with, I want to be seen so that I'm significant. And then the return journey ends up with presence and love.
Yeah.
A deep, deep sense of presence. And in that presence, a deep and lasting abiding love. And is that the primary stuff that your work is surrounded around?
Yeah, you nailed some stuff right here.
All right, cool. And if it's, yeah. So now we know, oh, that's the primary hero's journey for my tribe. And we know that there is there's some themes that we can pull on. I want to be seen and known and be significant, right? That's the wounded ego themes. And then the deeper soul themes are, I long for connectivity, presence, and love,
Yeah.
right? So, do you ever tell stories about how you hunted for significance and desperately wanted to be seen?
No.
Okay. Those are stories you need to start telling.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me about just one story, anything that comes to mind around seeking a spotlight or wanting to be seen or seeking significance.
What's one that comes to my mind? I'm drawing a blank here at the moment.
Tell me about a time you felt really like, you felt like your dad was really proud of you. And keep breathing.
Yeah.
Keep breathing.
What it feels like is like saying you're proud versus like really feeling it.
Uh-huh.
And like
Tell me about a time when he said he was proud, but you didn't feel it.
not one specifically comes to my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about a moment when you felt proud of yourself.
Yeah.
What's one of your proud moments?
I'd say after hopping off a coaching session, I felt like, fuck yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go back a little earlier in life than that.
Cool.
Like, I'll tell you one of mine. We'll see if this jogs memory.
Sure.
I have a degree in vocal education and vocal performance. And my junior year of college, I went to the big, big national competition called NATS, National Association of Teachers of Singing. It's the big competition where all people at conservatories go and compete. And I did this Samuel Barber song that was really different and not something you normally hear at Nats, but it's so awesome. And I remember being in this suit and I just felt so like, and like my pianist and our page turner, like we were all like tall, you know, good looking guys in our suits and just feeling kind of badass. And like my voice was in amazing shape that day. And I felt so connected to this song and just killed it and won first place. And I was like, regardless of what I got in score, when I walked off that stage, the three of us walked off stage in our suits, I just felt like so good about it. And then like to win was amazing, right? So like that's one of those moments of pride. We put a lot of effort and a lot of preparation, and it paid. It paid off.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm curious if you just have something where you put some effort into something and it paid off, and you felt good about yourself.
I would say one thing that comes up is it was my senior year of high school, and I had this pattern before of like I would work so hard I would play basketball, so I'd work so hard at playing basketball, and then I would just get on stage and just fuck it up.
Uh-huh.
And I remember there was one time we had a new coach, so it was like a blank slate for me. And I just remember I played so well, and I just felt really great about it after.
Awesome. Good. So now, if you're on stage or on a webinar or wherever it is, you can say, you know, when I was a kid, my dad was always there for me, but I never felt like he was there with me. Like he'd show up and he was a good support, but I never felt connected to him. And on some level, like I just craved his presence. I wanted him to see me, to validate me. I wanted to see him proud of me. And so I worked at things when I was a kid. Still do, but in a different way. And one of the things I did was play basketball. Now, my interpretation somehow about my dad and his kind of lack of presence was somehow I didn't feel significant to him. And I was always craving that. And I'd be on the basketball court and I'd work so hard, but when game time came, man, I would just lose it. I think I really went into not feeling significance, actually functioning from my insignificance, and it showed on the court. But what year was it when the new coach came?
It was my senior year.
But my senior year, we had a new coach. And it was like a fresh slate, a clean slate. He didn't know me from Adam. And I don't know what was happening or why I was able just to show up, but I got out of my fight for significance and had the best game of my career. It was amazing. I felt so proud of myself. And afterwards, I reflected on it, and what I know is I was more present in that game than I had been in any game before. I was out of my head and on the court. And what I know happens for my tribe is my tribe are people that want significance. Sometimes you probably feel insignificant. You don't feel like you're seen or noticed or heard like I did on all those games that I frankly screwed up. But I also know that beyond significance, what you most care and long for is a deeper sense of connectivity, of presence, and ultimately of love. And in that moment, on a court with a basketball, I tasted that. Now, I still spent many years trying to prove myself and kind of inflate myself and being the big man on campus. But my journey has taught me that my significance doesn't live out there, and neither does yours. And there is a place where you don't have to push and fight anymore. And that's what I want to invite you into. So there's one of your stories.
Amazing.
So, see, all we did was go, oh, what's the wound pattern? What's the central theme? And then where's a story? Doesn't seem like it has any relevance to business. That might not even be the best story. It's just one we have. But my hope is that you start to see, like, yeah, you have pushed and strived for significance for a long time. All those places you inflated and it failed, that's where the gold is.
Yep.
The gold isn't in the story where you're the big winner.
Right.
right? Only if the big winning is their win. See, when I retold that story, you winning was not, and finally I was amazing, right? I'm the man. No. We told it from the return journey. We told it from presence, which is the deeper thing on the return journey in the hero's journey. And in that way, two things happen. You reveal more of yourself, and the story is a gift to them. It's not really about you,
Yeah.
you know? But it comes from knowing that that's the central theme. Questions?
What else is there? I'm also just trying to come to just think about like how maybe it would just take me watching the video again, but just like really drilling that into myself.
You don't have to drill.
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
present with it.
See what you did there.
Let me go one other place with you.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Well, thank you. Such a salesman. Let's relate this back to marketing for a minute. Let's see. I'll bring this over here for a minute so maybe you can see a bit of it. So these themes are helpful in connection, right? We talked about the heart and maybe even a bit of essence, right? But then there's the mind thing. And because I don't really know what you do or where your specialty is or where you lie in the market, I couldn't add that piece in when I was retelling the story. But that is something that would need to be included,
Yeah.
right? So with me, with the coming out and hiding out, I'm in marketing and leadership. Marketing and leadership are both, at the end of the day, in the money niche, right? It comes back to not doing your soul's calling, and ultimately the nuts and bolts of it logically are missed opportunities, right? You're leaving money on the table. So I'm always going to bring it back to that, at least when I'm doing my best, right? So to me, in marketing, God, I didn't know I'd do this either, but I'll do this very quickly. When I teach about 3 different types of problems that the market has. Yeah, let me do this. Another amazing drawing. And we'll do logic, heart, emotion, and essence. There's an end at the end of emotion. Details. So when you're telling these stories and these patterns, you have to be able to relate it back here.
Yeah.
The stories naturally connect here and have a bit of this, right? But we need to go back here. And to do that, we need to look at the 3 different types of problems that the tribe has. Mm-hmm. Well, I can keep it here and do it on the right side. That's right. Unknown, private, and public. The public problem is the symptom of the unknown problem, right? So the unknown problem is I'm spending my life hunting for significance. Man, I know a lot of people doing that game, right? And you're going to find a lot of them in business. Mm-hmm. It's significance and money, right? You can find some of them in love, significance and love, right? So you can find a lot of people that are probably looking for significance by dating the hottest chick or whatever it is, right? You can find people looking for significance by having the hotshot job or driving the hotshot car, which costs hotshot money, right? So when we look at the symptom of the unknown problem, it's going to be symptoms of hunting from the wound for significance. Make sense? And everything that's connected to that symptom, right? So we can just go, oh, we know if somebody's hunting for significance from their wound, right? They're going to drive. At some points, they're going to feel like a failure, but it's totally a secret. They'll never let you know. They're probably going to inflate a lot, especially if they're a dude looking for a significance. They're probably going to be hunting for success. People hunt for success for different reasons. Your people hunt for it because they will be significant if they have success. Their success must be public, however. Can't be private success. Can't be in the back of the room. It has to be in the front of the room. It has to be visible. It has to be public so that they can be praised. I'm seeing the smile on your face, right? So he knows these people. He's been these people, right? That's why you have a life PhD in significance, right? And the private problem is how they feel about the public problem, that they don't want people to know. So remember when, this is why I had to do the brain thing earlier. I love how things come together. So if we're back on this brain thing here, the unknown problem, we can kind of relate it more or less to 3 brains. Technically, the unknown, I would say, is more in the mammalian brain than reptilian brain. But nonetheless, the reptilian brain is precognitive. It's largely unknown, right? So we're blind to what's at the root cause, which is I feel insignificant. And there's a lack of presence in my life. Insignificance is the wound. Significance is what they're on a hunt for. How they feel about it. Man, if you're hunting for significance and you're doing everything you can to get it and buying the awesome car and blah, 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 and then you crash and burn, how do you feel?
Not super great.
Yeah, tell me honestly how you feel.
Say the sentence one more time. I wasn't super
If you're
present.
hunting for significance and doing everything you can and driving the awesome car, whatnot, and you crash and burn in some way, publicly, how do you feel?
I mean, at this point, I don't really...
No, how would you feel?
Yeah, like not wanting people to know. Wanting
Completely embarrassed,
Yeah.
mortified. You want to hide under a rock as quickly as you effing can,
Yeah.
right? You don't want anyone to know. You certainly don't want women to know. Feel maybe even a little emasculated. You wonder if you can show your face again. Sound familiar? Maybe not exactly for you, but
Yeah,
I'm saying
I can resonate with.
Does this make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
And it'd be better. I'm for the sake of time here, I'm filling in a lot of these blanks.
Sure.
But if we were working together, if you were doing this, we'd spend more time and I'd get your words and so forth.
Yeah.
But that's the private problem, right? That's the thing they're running away from, the thing they don't want to feel. Now in marketing, if you were to say, you know, like what kind of coaching do you do? What kind of work do you do?
So it really centers around transparency and letting go of overthinking and becoming more present.
So that what?
So that you can just embody love more.
All right.
But yeah,
So what's missing is this.
yeah.
People don't know why they should pay you.
Okay, so I have a tagline. I'll just go
all right.
like helping creators let go of overthinking so they can just relax.
Creators. So what can't the creators do when they're in overwhelm and overthinking?
They can't be in their full creative state.
And then what? What's the problem with that?
Their expression to the world gets diminished and they're not able to create what they're meant to create.
What kind of things are they meant to create?
They're meant to create businesses. They're meant to create art. They're meant to do speaking. And
All right. So at the end of the day, these creators aren't creating. When creators don't create, they're broke. That's the bottom line problem. So if you're not speaking to people that are playing with fire, with their finances, I'm creating, I'm not creating, I'm doing it, I'm not doing, you're not speaking to this. And so all the self-love and presence and whatnot, it's not going to sell. Because you're doing emotion, 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 a little trickle of essence, but you're just here, like love and presence and being in your creative force and flow. Right? So, what we can do here is to say, look, like you, when I was fighting for significance, my brain wasn't on the court. Where my brain was how do I look? Is coach paying attention? Is my dad here? And guess what would happen? Game after game after game, when game time came, frankly, I sucked, right? I didn't do it. I didn't create. I didn't end up with a win. And what very well may be happening for you, because what happens for a lot of my clients that are meant to be creators, meaning you're meant to be an artist, you're meant to be a singer, you're meant to be a business owner, you're meant to be an entrepreneur, is that you're not staying in the game. Instead, you're staying in your head. Now, my first game in my senior year, we had a new coach. And for whatever reason, it struck me that I had a clean slate. And I could do whatever I want with it. And I was so in the zone, like I'd never been before. I wasn't thinking about my dad. I wasn't thinking about this new coach. I wasn't thinking about anything but what was happening in that moment, in that game. And I had the best game of my life. So, which game are you playing in your business? Are you playing the game where you're proving it to everybody else? Where you're stuck in your head? Where you want everybody to see what you're doing, but frankly, when push comes to shove, the money's not flowing in? Or are you playing the game where you're so connected to what you're creating, where you're present to what's happening, moment by moment, day by day, and as a result, almost magically, your visions, your creations come to life. And people love them. And the money starts flowing in. Which game do you want to be playing? In my work, I help creative entrepreneurs, creative visionaries, stay deeply connected and present to what they're meant to be doing moment by moment, day by day, so that what they create every single day has the greatest impact in the world. And where they see their visions come to life and are more present to what they're actually meant to be doing. And as a result, the money flows in. Right? So there's the story. That's actually where the story is, now that we know a bit more about what you do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's a game changer.
Yeah, it's a game changer, but on bunch, right? So for each one of us, we need to know what the central theme is, right? What the wound is underneath it and what the central theme is. We need to know the journey out and the return journey. And then we need to know how to do the flip, how to translate it into what you sell, into what they're looking to buy from you, into what your offer is for them. Does that make sense? And when you can do that, now, does this guy make more sense to you? Yeah. Right? Do you know, without even knowing exactly what he does or how he does it or what his offer is or anything like that, but you know what he does. And if you're somebody that's like always in your head and overthinking and always trying to prove, and you know that that's like your nemesis and you can't get out of your way, are you likely to be interested in hiring this guy? Yeah, right? That's where you need to be living. Make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh. All right. So let's see here. Okay, cool. We can easily do at least one more. Before we do that, I want to see what did you see? What did you learn? What ahas did you get? What questions do you have? And on live stream, chat them in. Tell us what questions you have. What's cooking for you? You know, we'll check in with the live streamers in a bit here. But first in the room, ahas, insights? Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old we are or how young, it's all the same story.
Say more. What do you mean by that?
Oh, we just went through my story.
Uh-huh.
Right?
His story is your story.
The story of being insignificant, feeling like the littlest kid in my class growing up, and never being good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't matter what I did or what I did all my life. My father never acknowledged any of it.
Yep. Yep. So I love that you share this, because what you're saying is a human connection was made.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I get it. And I know what that journey is. And you may or may not need what he's selling, right? But the connection was made, and that's the role of story.
No, I'm more selling what he's selling.
So that's part of, I get it, right. So you're also starting to see where your stories live.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the stories you need to be telling.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to be his grandfather.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know one of the fields you work in is direct selling, right? Helping people build businesses. Do you think some of those people have a wound around insignificance? Oh, yeah. Here's what's wild. There are certain wounds that are concentrated in certain industries. So for example, in financial services, it's very common when I do a wound intake with somebody in the financial services industry that they have a wound around worthlessness. And totally unconsciously, of course, they went into a field to create value, right? I have a client, Kevin Chikati, client, friend, etc., works with project managers. His whole thing, when we got into this work, it was like, oh, the central thing is Mr. Nice Guy, the people pleaser. That's the primary thing for his people, right? And I was like, oh, do you have people pleasers? I didn't know. In the project management industry. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, the thing with project managers is none of them have any inherent authority because everybody they're managing has their own bosses. And oftentimes what they do to try to get people to work together and follow them is to be really nice, right? But what actually happens is they absolutely erode their own inherent authority, and so no one cares about them, right? He just went to Istanbul to speak, right? Earlier this year, he got invited to be the keynote at the big International Project Management Association of the World Conference because he knows this central theme and knows one of the central themes that's rampant in the industry as a result and how that connects to his life PhD. So for you, Clifford, to know that not everyone in the direct sales industry has an insignificance wound, but my guess is, my intuition is telling me, it's a pretty big thing in that industry. And a lot of how that industry recruits people is the promise of significance. They flash the cars and the boats and the dream vacations you're going to get when you're killing it, right? That's how the wounded expression of the industry works. So of course you would have an insignificance wound, and of course you'd be in that industry, and of course you'd be called to be a leader to help them move through the journey back home.
Yeah, but my question is, what bugs me most about the industry is the killing of people's dreams for a small number of people's income.
Well, so let me reframe that for you, if I can.
Sure.
I'll offer you a reframe. One of the things I say about our wounding is that we all have a core unanswered question related to our wound. If you have an insignificance wound, the question is, am I significant? Am I significant? Will you show me that I'm significant? Will you show me that I'm significant? If I feel like I'm unlovable, will you show me that I'm lovable, right? Will you show me that I'm lovable, right? And I'm looking at it from life partners, I'm looking at it from bosses, from friends, right? And I'll stay friends or keep that boss or keep that partner so long as they keep reinforcing and answering my question for me. And when they stop, I'll break up with them, I'll quit the job, I'll move out from that friendship. And part of, in the hero's journey, part of what we all have to do is turn towards our own core unanswered question and risk answering it. And it's a risk because we're scared that the answer might come back, no, you're not significant, you're not lovable, you're not worthy, you're not enough, you don't belong, right? And of course, it's in turning towards that core unanswered question and risking answering it that we actually begin our return journey. Because what happens in the hero's journey? We had it all along, didn't know it, couldn't claim it. Had significance all along. Didn't know it, couldn't claim it. Dad, damn it, why won't you pay attention? Why won't you give me the thing I know I need from you? Oh, his holy role was to help you with your wound around insignificance because your life's mission required it, right? And of course, in the hero's journey, in that spiritual path, you turn towards it and start to find your own significance that you validate for yourself.
Always did.
Always did, right? That's the hero's journey. Now, let's blow that up to an industry. Wounded industries, and there's wounds in all industries because there's wounds in our world. On one hand, you go, oh, the victimizer, that bad industry plays on this wound. From all these people, it sells the dream, but only 5% of them get it. That bad industry, bad people.
Yeah, it's worse than that.
Oh, it's worse than that, right? Sure. So, rotten, 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 and here's all these victims, which on one level is absolutely true. Field of broken dreams, right? On one level, absolutely true. Unconsciously, what we don't know is that this group of people, this massive group of people with a field of broken dreams, there's a good chance they all have this insignificance wound. And they've been looking to have the other do it for them. Will you show me I'm significant? They're doing it in their relationships. They're doing it in their parenting. And they're doing it when they join an MLM. So we have to take responsibility as the victim for our role, right? And to know, like, oh, there's a huge group of people that are contracting with that industry to feed the wound. Now, one of the reasons it hurts you is because you're meant to be a voice of change in that industry.
Oh, I get that.
Right?
That's why I'm signed up for
Yeah.
the course. And
Yeah.
the 3 days and yeah.
All the things.
Yeah.
And doing the work in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So for you to speak to that industry and be a voice of change, to know that this is one of the fundamental themes in the industry that you're meant to speak to, and to know that you have a whole raft of life stories, that so many of them that can speak to this theme, and the theme of being burned, and the theme of feeling insignificant, and the theme of wanting somebody else to validate you and so forth, that's all going to be an asset in your thought leadership.
Yep. I get it.
Cool? Awesome. Good. Thank you. Pat, you had something, and we'll check in with live streamers.
I saw what happened in terms of the benefit that Kyle got
Yep.
for his business, right? But there was something else going on for him. Will you speak to that from the standpoint that
Of essence?
I saw him change
Yeah.
from the time when he's told his story and then you helped him refine it. So there's something that happens for the
Yeah.
speaker as more than their business inside of them.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. So what I think Pat is referring to or noticing is what happens when you retell a story. Have you ever heard those stories where just like everything falls apart, right? The pipes break and the water floods in the house. Your car breaks down. Your girlfriend breaks up with you, all on the same day, right? Now, whatever it is, those stories, the worst stories, the horror stories or the war stories or the worst stories, when they happen, they're not remotely funny, right? Like, at all. Worst day of your life. But in the retelling of a story, those are the best stories. Man, those are the stories you tell and you're like, no, you don't even get it. This is what happened next. You know, and I was driving to try to get the thing from the hardware store to deal with the thing, and my car broke down and the dog ran away and I had to chase it for 3 miles, right? Like, those are the stories we tell. We tell the war stories, and in the retelling of them, there is a reclamation of the journey. And that's part of what makes it interesting and entertaining and fun. And it's also why your worst stories end up not feeling like you're bleeding all over people, but actually lifting them up, right? One of the reasons I love working with core wounds is because I'm really interested in reclamation. I told you that, in my opinion, on some level, all wounds move into sovereignty, but certainly outcast moves into sovereign. And part of the journey of telling your story is claiming the value in your biggest struggles, claiming the value of the wound, and serving not from the pain of the wound, but the gift of the wound. So when Kyle's telling a story about insignificance, about just screwing up game after game after game, every time he gets on the court, no matter how much he worked in practice, it's in the retelling of that he claims the gift of this journey of insignificance and significance that he can serve from, where he claims the life PhD. And in the claiming of the PhD, there is a sovereignty that begins to occur, where you don't wear it like a shroud of shame. This is so funny. But throw it back and wear it like a superhero's cape. You know? And you're like, oh yeah, I sucked. It was awesome, right? And you retell the story from a place of power, of reclamation, of sovereignty, of holiness even. And what used to bury you now lifts you up and lifts up the people in your presence. It's also when this happens that you can begin to let, I was looking for where I put that paper, where you, the essence, design, calling, contribution, it's in the retelling of these stories for you and the audience that your essence in that reclamation can come up and come out and be expressed through your design, through your calling, through your business model, and out into the world, right? And I think the reason, Kyle, I wanted to take another step forward and just give you a little taste of what the translation of this looks like into marketing is to take it from essence into a bit of design, calling, and model and into the world to show how that moves, and that telling your story is as instrumental for you as it is the audience. Now, one of my early mentors, Marcia Wieder, did say something that I want to add as a caveat here, which is to never tell a story while you're still bleeding from it. So if you're in Houston right now and you don't have a home, you aren't going to go on stage, unless you're advocating for FEMA to help, you aren't going to go on stage and tell your story from a place of reclamation. Don't tell a story while you're still bleeding from it. It's when you have some distance from it, where you've learned the archetypal lesson and started to embody that archetypal lesson, that you can tell it from a place of reclamation and hope. Cool?
What I got from you is the joy that you expressed telling the story.
Yeah. I mean, look, when you retell those stories of your worst moments, there's joy in them, right? And it's like, oh my God, and then this, can you believe it? It's fun.
Since I'm in business church, what I'm experiencing is the bringing from the unconscious to the conscious so it can be utilized for everyone's benefit,
That's right. Absolutely.
right? Otherwise, this material continues to cycle, and we stay a victim of our own story in that position. And I also relate to your concern about your father's lack of presence. I can remember a story riding to work with my father many, many years ago, and I didn't know what I had done wrong. I assumed I had done something wrong in the situation because he was so stone-faced and he was so preoccupied. In other words, he had a lot on his mind,
Yeah.
so he couldn't be present,
Yeah.
right? And I interpreted that in a negative way, which I carried around for a long time.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And kids do that all the time.
It's how the wounding occurs.
Exactly. So
Yep.
everybody has some example of that, and most people in our society are encouraged to believe that it's happening outside themselves, that the world is happening to them
Yep.
rather than through them.
Yep.
So they don't know how to be able to make that bridge because it looks like it's out there, it's an out picturing, but it's really happening in here, and that's the only place that spell can be broken.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Very well said. You just basically encapsulated my work.
Which is why I'm here.
Yeah, and part of being a leader requires us to tell our story. Because it's one thing, especially when you're in the world of transformation in one way, shape, or form, to talk about transformation from the voice of transformation. And that's where we have stuff like the Spears dude who does the YouTube videos. What's yeah. Jamie, right? JP Spears. That's where we have those YouTube videos, shit new age girls say, right? And where it becomes a parody is because it's disconnected from our humanity, right? And transformation becomes a parody when it's disconnected from our humanity. There is one. Yeah. Bayard, our copywriters back here. That's when it becomes a parody because it's like, oh, we're talking about self-love and we're talking about like coming home to yourself and finding your true self and living your authentic, finding your authentic voice. And like it's totally like it floats in never land because it's not connected to our humanity. Story is what connects or can connect transformation to our humanity so that it can land and that people can receive it, right? That's where I believe story is so necessary. Adyashanti, this meditation teacher I've done some work with, talks about enlightenment as this up and out journey, right? That there is the up and out version of enlightenment, and then there's the down and in version, right? This embodied spirituality. And in my tribe, like that's the thing we're up to, bringing this stuff into earth, grounding it into the world, heaven on earth. That's why we're in business instead of in some other arena. That's why you go a mile deep.
You're reaching to the stars, to the sky, for all abundance and spirituality, and grabbing the earth at the same time.
Absolutely.
Right? And
We're
being-
translators.
Yes.
So story is part of how we translate. And my hope and desire from this evening is to give you permission to find more and more and more themes in how you connect and what those primary themes are with your tribe, where you will start to see, oh, I remember this story, and I remember that story, and I remember this other story. And the stories, what's wild is they don't have to be these big, dramatic stories, right? I remember for so long when I started in this work, feeling like, oh gosh, I don't know what story is that. Like, I haven't lost a leg to an alligator. I haven't been in some, massive earthquake where I was under rubble and survived. Like, I didn't grow up with a crack addict mother and no father. You know, I've had clients that have had some pretty horrific, amazing stories that they've lived through. For the longest time, I was like, I don't have those. But you just shared a story of, yeah, I remember being in a car once with my dad, and he must have had something on his mind, but to the young me, he was stone cold, and I didn't feel like I could connect with him, and it started this lifelong pattern of feeling like I couldn't connect, if that's it, right? The most simple stories, the most mundane, can become relevant when you know what the transformational themes are you're speaking to in these stories. Yeah? Good. Questions from online? No.
Some stuff about
Mike.
Oh yeah. There were some questions about the hero's journey, but other than that, all quiet over here. I think everyone is wrapped in attention.
Wrapped in attention. The power of story. All right, cool. Oh, that Q&A session took us longer than I thought. All good. So here's where I want to leave you. There's beauty in the darkest places. I remember when I started in this world, I worked with this guy, Tim Kelly. He was an amazing mentor, still a dear friend, colleague. And essence was part of finding your purpose and asking trusted source, what's my essence, right? And I was the first person he'd ever apprenticed or taken under his wing or trained in his work. I was the first person that ever taught his work.
And I was in your first apprentice class.
That's wild. And for a good few years, I would ask the trusted sources, like, what's my essence? And it'd be like silent. I get tons of information about everything else, but like nothing on essence. And Tim and I opened up a school in Israel at one point, and I remember being up above the Dead Sea in the desert. These guys took us 4x4ing. And there was this cavern, this slice out of the earth where you went to this cliff and it was just whoa, this big V into the earth. And it was about 4 in the afternoon and the sun was setting. And you could see these beautiful colors of red and orange and yellow and brown and all these colors in the rock in that V. And the sun was hitting it just right, and so it was just gorgeous. And my guidance said to me in that moment, Jeffrey, your essence is like that. To illuminate beauty in the darkness. To find the joy in the retelling of the story. To say, oh, that thing that you've had shame or guilt or judgment about, the thing that's been your nemesis, can be your salvation. And if you receive it, you can be a guide and support and way shower for others. So my hope is that you take this evening and can look back at some of your stories, maybe even some stories where you still have some shame or some judgment, maybe some stories that are still active, and just gain a little distance and shed afternoon light on it and see it from a new trajectory. I go, oh, that's beautiful. That's stunning. I've never seen it that way before. And gosh, looking at it that way, I can show something new to the world. So, we are going to wrap there. I have a few short announcements and a couple of requests, and then we will complete our evening together. First of all, thank you. I love exploring. And these evenings feel like journeys and explorations we get to go on together. And without you, there's not an expedition. So thank you for being here. These happen the third Thursday of every month. What's the third Thursday in October? Anybody know? The October 19. So we will be back here October 19. Put that in your calendar. That's the third Thursday of the month. You can go to jeffreyvandykelive.com. Although we're using technology that broke today, so you can't go there right now. But when we have the next one available and the theme available and the page is updated, you'll get an email about that. I know that these evenings aren't for everybody, but for our tribe, there's something amazing here. So I invite you to invite your friends, bring other people. That's how more people come and how we continue to share. After we're done, I'm going to ask that we exit so we can tear down, but hang out, visit with each other, meet one another. So October 19 is the next one of these. November 16 to 18 is a 3-day deep dive called To Lead. It's going to be in Marina del Rey at a gorgeous hotel, and it really is looking at how we support you and moving from being a practitioner, and in that practitioner probably having some months financially that are great, and some that aren't so much, and then some that are, and some that aren't. Having your marketing sometimes land and sometimes not. Feeling like sometimes you're in the flow and sometimes you're heading out. And moving from that into what I call full-time partnership with a life force, where you also really understand and own, what am I a leader of? So we're going to go deep into story. We're going to go deep into transformational themes, archetypal themes for your tribe, because once you know what that underlying transformational theme is that connects everything you do, you'll start to get a level of ownership about your place and your leadership in this world from which everything springs and everything is built. So if you would like to join us for that and you're online, you can go to calledtoleadlive.com, calledtoleadlive.com. We have a super early bird price of $697 through October 8. But if you join between now and this coming Tuesday, I have a course leading up to the event that's included. And that course is called the Essential Shift. So that starts next week, Tuesday, and if you join Called to Lead between now and then, that gets included live. If you are here and want to learn more about it, just see me or Noah or Pat, and we can share more about it. If you want to sign up tonight, we'll help you do that as well. Any other announcements? Noah?
Give away the Soul Guided niche to everybody.
Yeah, where do I send them for that?
You got that on the screen? travelmarketing.biz/soul-guided-niche.
All right, cool. So I recently just created a beautiful and beautifully designed multi-page ebook about finding your soul-guided niche, finding that 1 square inch you can drill a mile deep, with a really awesome exercise in that gets you started. So if you want to learn more about how I help people in their marketing and market their calling, you can go to tribalmarketing.biz/your soul-guided-niche. That's right. tribalmarketing.biz/soul-guided. Soul-guided.
It's on the screen.
It's on the screen. And we can send that out to you guys here too. If you are in this room, we love to get feedback from you. So we always hand out a little feedback form. On the front, there's just feedback on how this evening landed for you, if you have any feedback for us to make it better. On the back, if you want to talk with somebody on my team about what we do and how we support entrepreneurs, just check the checkbox, fill that out, and our team will be in touch and set up a time to talk to you privately. If you are online, you can go to tribalmarketing.biz/feedback, or tribalmarketing.biz/welcome. /feedback is the feedback, /welcome is a place where you can learn more about what we do and sign up for a time to talk to us. Whew, I think that's it, isn't it? We have a lot of stuff cooking this fall. So that's all of it. That's it, gang. Thanks for coming. It was great to have you here. I look forward to, how many of you would be interested in working on stories, like doing like a 3-day or something on storytelling? Really understanding what the transformational theme is, finding practice storytelling? Okay, that's what I thought. So I don't know when we're gonna do that, but I was just told to ask, and thank you. If you're online and you would be interested in some form of support around storytelling, especially transformational storytelling, maybe an in-person 3 days, a small deep dive, maybe something else, just type your email address into the chat and we'll make note of that and we'll be in touch at some point in the future. If you're in the room and that's of interest to you, on the back page, just write storytelling on the top and we'll be sure to be in touch with you about that. So apparently there's something else we might do. All right, with that, go forth, tell your stories, and help liberate this world. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.